Roy Jones Jr. in his prime was one of my favorite fighters of all time. He beat some very, very good fighters in his day. Some extremely skillful boxers, people like James Toney and Mike McCallum. And even though he beat McCallum and Toney via landslide points decisions, I mean, those fights were not close. They were shutouts. Even though he beat those guys easily on the cards, I still consider James Toney and Mike McCallum to have far superior boxing skills to Roy Jones Jr. Now, some people are going to listen to that statement and say, okay, that don't make sense. How can you say those guys have got better boxing skills than Roy Jones Jr. when Jones Jr. beat them out of sight on the cards, ran rings around them? How can you say they've got better skills? I say they've got better skills because Roy Jones Jr. was a freakish athlete. He never had great technique. He had a lot of flaws in his game, but he was able to get away with having those flaws because of that freakish athleticism that he had. And fighters such as Vinny Pazienza and a couple of other fighters came out in interviews after their fights with Roy Jones Jr. and said that Jones intimidates you with his speed and his explosiveness and his power. He intimidates you. The punches are coming in so fast from such unusual angles. He covers the distance in the ring so quickly that you always feel like you have to be on the defensive because his speed is just so ridiculous. He hits you from distances and angles that no other fighters can hit you from. It's just too fast. So despite the fact he's making mistakes, despite the fact that he's not technically that sound, the athleticism overcomes all that. But later on in Jones's career, when his body started to slow down and the reflexes started to slow down and the speed wasn't quite the same, that's when the cracks in Jones's game, the cracks which were always there, the flaws which were always there, that's when they started to show. And that's why Jones's career went downhill as quickly and dramatically as it did from the second Tarver fight. After the second Tarver fight, he was pretty much finished. When up to the first Tarver fight, he was looking better than ever. But he declined dramatically because he didn't have, once his body started to slow down, he didn't have solid fundamentals to fall back on. Okay, never mind solid fundamentals. He didn't even have good fundamentals because he used to make so many mistakes. All right. So that's how I can say that, in my opinion, even though he soundly outpointed people like James Toney and Mike McCallum, McCallum and Toney had far superior boxing skills. They were just contained and intimidated, really, by Jones's speed and explosiveness. Both those guys hardly threw any punches, especially Toney, in their fights with Jones, because they did not know where the punches were coming from. The punches were just coming so fast, they were afraid of making mistakes and getting caught and embarrassed. So he really intimidated guys and kept them in their shell. Now, I say this because some people were actually offended by my assessment of Sergey Kovalev's boxing skills, both before and after his fight with Bernard Hopkins. I've basically said that Kovalev has good sound fundamentals, decent boxing skills, but nothing exceptional. It's his power combined with those decent boxing skills that make him exceptional. And like I say, some people have taken offense to that. And they say, no, Kovalev has amazing boxing skills and that he would outbox most fighters on skills alone, even if he didn't have any power. This is what some people are telling me. Some people are even saying that Kovalev has much better boxing skills than Andre Ward. And that Andre Ward just has been outboxed in many of his fights, and then he just gets rough and wins his fights by brawling, basically. This is what some people are saying. I wholeheartedly disagree with all that. Okay? Wholeheartedly. Andre Ward, let's just take Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather as two examples. These are guys who can go in the ring, and if things are not going well with one strategy, they can change up the strategy or win a different way. Both Ward and Floyd can fight on the inside and they can fight on the outside. They can counterpunch. They can stand in the eye of the storm against an extremely aggressive opponent who's throwing the kitchen sink at them and barely get wet. That is skills. Okay, that is incredible boxing skill, in my opinion. When you don't have the power to discourage your opponents from throwing punches, but yet you still manage to avoid most of their shots, the vast majority of their shots, and hit them back frequently. Boxing at the end of the day is about hitting and not getting hit. So when we're talking about skills, that to me is skills. Guys who can go in the ring like Andre Ward did against Edwin Rodriguez, where Rodriguez is throwing everything at him and he's landing nothing. And Ward is hitting him and catching him with clean shots. That's amazing skill. Same with Floyd Mayweather. I know he's been getting hit more in his recent fights, but prior to that, there was plenty of fights where guys are literally emptying the cartridge at him and Floyd is blocking the shots, slipping the shots, being in the right position, landing counters. It's incredible skill. I don't see that in Sergey Kovalev. I see a guy who has good sound boxing skills, but he intimidates guys like Roy Jones used to intimidate people with speed and athleticism and explosiveness, and contains better boxers like McCallum and James Toney, keeps them in their shell. I see what Kovalev did to Hopkins as something similar to that. That he contained the guy, he kept him in his shell with the threat of this tremendous punching power, which he does have. Yes, he cut the ring off nicely. He was throwing feints. I mean, who don't throw feints? Marcus McDonough throws feints. I mean, is Marcus McDonough an incredible fighter now because he throws feints? I mean, come on, people. What Kovalev was doing was just basic boxing, moving around the ring, intimidating Hopkins with the threat of that big power. And if a guy is really intimidated by your power, your feints mean something to him. He's going to recoil from your feints because he understands the significance of getting hit by one of your punches. If the opponent is not really that afraid of your power, he's going to take chances and he's going to run the red lights, as the wire likes to say. He's going to look at your feints, especially if he's getting behind on the cards. He's going to look at some of your feints and be like, fuck it, I'm going to go in. I'm going to go in anyway. I'm going to call his bluff. And that's something that Bernard Hopkins frequently does in fights. Go look at the Tarver fight and several other fights where Hopkins is just like, you know what? I'm just going to put my head down and rush in and try and catch this guy with a right hand and rough him up on the inside. He's done that in many fights, but he didn't do it against Kovalev. He didn't do it because that power really impressed him and it contained him. The way that Jones was able to contain better boxers in McCallum and Toney, he was able to do the same thing because of that outlandish punching power that Kovalev has. He was able to do the same thing to Hopkins. That's my interpretation of what happened. Okay, I don't see Kovalev as the guy who, on boxing skill alone, can go out there and win fights on skill alone. I don't see it. Not at the top level against top opposition. If he didn't have that power, I don't see him being able to go out there and outbox the top guys. Okay? There's nothing in his career that's happened so far which, to me, would indicate that he can. He hasn't been in a position where he's got a guy coming at him who doesn't fear his power, who he maybe can't hurt or discourage with his power, who's just constantly putting him under pressure and throwing the kitchen sink at him. We haven't seen Kovalev in that position. So why people think he has amazing boxing skills, I don't know. Even his offensive skills, his power is incredible. But even his offensive skills, which I've seen, I haven't seen him, set up punches like Juan Marquez, specific shots, because Marquez is a tremendously skilled counterpuncher and punch picker. Even Floyd Mayweather is a tremendous punch picker. Also, Andre Ward is a tremendous punch picker. He'll go in there and say, you know what, I'm going to land this specific shot. And he'll land it all night, a specific shot for a specific opponent. I haven't seen Kovalev do that. Kovalev's offense is a lot more deliberate and straightforward from what I've seen. Okay, and he's never been put under pressure where he would have to show the kind of skills that Hopkins showed defensive skills, not much. He didn't get to show his offensive skills. He was too afraid to use his offensive skills against Kovalev. But Hopkins certainly showed a lot of defensive skills against Kovalev. Kovalev has never had to show them kind of skills. I don't think he has them. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think he has those kind of skills. Okay? The people saying that Ward doesn't really have great boxing skills, he just brawls with people and all that kind of stuff, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Go look at the Edwin Rodriguez fight. Rodriguez was throwing the kitchen sink at Ward, and Ward was avoiding everything and still landing clean shots. I mean, that is skills. Look at the Carl Froch fight. He was beating Froch from the outside and on the inside. Okay, on the outside, he was, messing with the distance and the range. He was hitting Froch with a jab. He was hitting him with a left hook. Then on the inside, he's not just going in there and brawling crudely. Inside fighting, what Ward does on the inside is a skill. It's not just someone going in there wrestling and having a row. No, it's not that. It's a skill. Okay, and to emphasize how much it's a skill, look at Tim Bradley against Devon Alexander. Bradley's a skilled inside fighter. Not as skilled as Ward or Floyd on the inside, but he's skilled. He knows which angles to come in at. He knows how to position his body to come in on the inside to avoid getting hit and then be able to get his own shots off. And he was able to do that successfully against Devon Alexander. But you look at Marcus Maidana and Soto Carras, guys who are more formidable punchers and, certainly more formidable punchers than Tim Bradley. You would think they'd be able to go in there and do what Bradley did against Alexander, but they couldn't. Not because they didn't have the strength or power, because they had probably more strength and definitely more power than Bradley. They couldn't do it because they didn't have the skill that Bradley had on the inside. Okay? It's not just rushing forward and out-muscling your opponent. You have to know what you're doing in there. And Andre Ward is tremendously skilled on the inside. Getting a hand free and getting the angles and understanding the balance and how to get yourself on balance and push your opponent off balance and tuck your hand in to avoid getting hit with shots on the inside and at the same time get a free hand off and hit your opponent. It's a skill fighting on the inside, and he demonstrated tremendous inside fighting skills against Carl Froch and also outside fighting skills against Carl Froch. To me, his boxing skills are far superior to Kovalev. And the same goes for Mayweather. As far as I'm concerned, that guy's skills way better than Kovalev's skills. I consider Kovalev to have good, solid boxing skills, but nothing exceptional. I think he has better skills than a guy like Stevenson overall. Well, I don't know, actually, I'm not sure about skills, but he's certainly got more punch variety than Stevenson, because Stevenson has got different skills than Kovalev, okay? And Kovalev's got different skills than Stevenson. I'll leave that for you guys to debate who's got more skills, but he's obviously got more skills than some guys, but I don't see him as having elite boxing skills. That's just my personal opinion. I don't see it. If he does have elite boxing skills and he can beat most guys with skills alone, then he should be able to last a very long time in the game, go up to cruiserweight, fight guys who he can't intimidate with his power, guys who he can't discourage with his power, guys who are going to throw the kitchen sink at him for 12 rounds. And he should still be able to avoid their punches and hit them with counters and walk them onto counters like Marquez and slip and slide like Mayweather. He should be able to do that if his skills are as amazing as some people are making out. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. Time will tell, but I don't think so, because I don't see his skills being on that type of level. I think you take the power away from Kovalev and you have a much more ordinary fighter. Okay? People were getting upset saying I'm making Kovalev out to be a brawler, and I've never made Kovalev out to be a crude brawler in any of my videos ever. So that's just people's imaginations running wild. I've always said that Kovalev has good, solid skills, just nothing spectacular. And another example before I end this video would be Nonito Donaire when he fought Omar Narvaez. As far as I'm concerned, Narvaez has better boxing skills than Donaire. But Donaire was just too big and strong for Narvaez. And Narvaez was scared from the first round when he felt the first few shots from Donaire. He shut up shop and he didn't want to know. He didn't want to throw any shots. He just wanted to see out the 12 rounds because he knew if he started, trying to throw punches, Donaire is eventually going to catch him with something, because Donaire did not respect what was coming back at him, and he was just going to keep throwing regardless. Okay? But in my opinion, Narvaez still has better boxing skills than Nonito Donaire. But Donaire was able to... And Donaire has skills. He's not like he's not skillful. I know he just lost to Nicholas Walters and all that, but Donaire always had good boxing skills. But I just feel Narvaez was a more technically sound fighter and had better skills, but he was just overpowered and intimidated by Nonito Donaire. Okay? So those of you who are taking my assessment of Kovalev's skills as a diss, you know, if you want to believe that Kovalev has amazing boxing skills, that's fine. That's your opinion. I guess we just have a different interpretation of what amazing boxing skills really are. Okay? That's all it is. So, yeah, drop your comments below. This is Hatman. I'm out.